Kate better.
Yeah, I'm kind of warming up to it myself.
Like we could all become Disney characters or something if we would like.
There we go.
That's where I draw the line. For myself, anyway.
Now I just won't tell her that I changed the name, and we'll see.
All right. Well, Zach, it looks like we're up and running.
Yes, sir. You're good to go now.
Okay. Well, let's call the meeting of the Research and Collections Committee to order. Ben, would you give us a roll call, please? Ben, you're muted.
There we go.
There you go.
Dr. Evans,
Here.
Dr. Tom Benzing,
Here.
Dr. Carol Nash,
Here.
Melanie Stowe,
Here. Good morning.
and let's see, Lisa Warner.
I think she's going to be attending another meeting today. She's on several committees and she double booked. So she opted to go with a committee that hasn't met very often lately.
Okay.
So I think we're all good to go here. First of all, I want to thank Ben for pulling all this together again, putting together the quarterly report and getting it out in a timely manner. And in particular for helping me this time around for putting together an executive summary. I asked him to do that because I found it difficult to put together the high points between this meeting and the main board meeting. So he's helping me out big time there, and I want to thank him for that. Does anybody have any comments regarding the minutes from the November committee meeting? Okay.
I'll move to approve them.
All right. Do I have a second to approve the minutes as presented?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Nay? Just in case. All right. Everybody gets their say. I am assuming that everybody has had a chance to go through the acquisitions report for October through December. That's quite a haul. There's a lot of interesting materials there. It was diverse. It's nice to see that in spite of all the pandemic related things going on and slowdowns here and there, the museum is still doing what it's intended to do, and that's acquire these important artifacts and specimens and get them into the collection. And I'm glad to see that there's a broad range of people that continue to support the Natural History Museum in that endeavor. Does anyone else have any comments regarding any of the particular items? All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve the list as presented. Anyone?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second it.
Thank you. Thanks for playing along, folks. Appreciate your participation. All those in favor of accepting the acquisitions items for October through December, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? All right, motion carries. We're moving right along here. Now we're going to consider the nomination of or appointment of Dr. Catherine Harrell as a museum research associate. I believe all of you have had an opportunity to read through her CV. Is her sponsor here?
Yes, I'm her sponsor.
Hayden, would you like to say a few words on her behalf?
Absolutely. Dr. Catherine Harrell, she is an incredibly impressive individual, but there's actually a very specific kind of context to this as well, which is the new Cultural Heritage Monitoring Lab here at the Virginia Museum of Natural History. Dr. Harrell's specialty, or combined specialties, I should say, is first and foremost, she's an archaeologist. Her PhD is in archaeology, but she is also has a very specific specialty, as you see in her CV, in conflict studies and things like satellite imagery analysis, which is exactly what we need to do our work. So she will, as you can see, she's been in active duty Navy, working at the Defense Intelligence Agency for the past couple of years, specifically on cultural heritage issues, believe it or not. And how they're caught up in conflict. But the great thing is she's now leaving her active duty status, and she's going to be returning to school. She's going to law school, I believe at the University of Virginia, to specialize in cultural heritage law. So another sort of great addition to exactly what we need in this lab. So she's to sort of justify her time and volunteering her time towards our lab. I thought it'd be an excellent idea to make her a research associate with the Virginia Museum of Natural History.
Well, thank you. She sounds like a real great fit and a real opportunity for the museum. It'd be a benefit to have her as part of the research associate team. Does anyone else have any comments? I'll entertain a motion to approve her nomination.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 I'm just going to assume there are no nays. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I will present her name as approved by this committee to the full board here shortly. We're also considering the renewal of Dr. Michael Johnson as a research associate. This is also an action item. Is Dr. Johnson sponsor among us today as well?
I am also Dr. Johnson's sponsor.
All right, this is going to be a busy morning for you. Please go right ahead if you'd like to say a few words.
So Dr. Johnson, he's a very well-known archaeologist in Virginia, a former Fairfax County archaeologist, but has done a lot in Virginia over the past several decades, particularly his excellent work on Cactus Hill, a collection that we curate at the Virginia Museum of Natural History and considered one of the oldest sites in Virginia, one of the oldest sites on the East Coast. He is now retired and devoting all of his time to full-time research, but also the Archaeological Society of Virginia, which Dr. Nash is intimately involved with. And so he is, I believe he is president of the chapter in Northern Virginia, not anymore, okay. But he would like to continue his affiliation with the museum, more or less to conduct his research on Cactus Hill, the Smith Mountain Gap projects, and other early sites in Virginia.
Excellent. And this is a renewal. So he's been part of the museum family for some time now. Great. Does anybody else have any comments regarding the renewal of Dr. Johnson's appointment?
Well, I can say that Mike and I have been colleagues for about 35 years. And one of the things that he is very well known for is he's a very strong advocate for citizen science. And he actually developed the kernel of what is now the certification program in Virginia that I co-direct. And it's one of the most vibrant in the country. And a lot of it has to do with the vision that he had a long time ago. So wherever he goes, he's very good at bringing in younger researchers. He's very good at working with the community.
Great. Thanks, Carol. Anyone else? Well, it sounds like this is a no-brainer, but we'll go through the motions anyway. I'll entertain a motion to approve his reappointment as a research associate.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, approved. Thank you, everyone. And we have another consideration for renewal. This is Paul Olson. Once again, is his sponsor available to speak on his behalf?
Suppose that would be me.
Okay. Would you like to say a few words? You don't have to. I'm not
Sure.
arm twisting here.
Oh, I'm glad to, because Dr. Olson is someone who is, in terms of the academic work I do on the early days of the Mesozoic era, the age of reptiles, Dr. Olson in the 20th century is like a foundational figure in understanding that, especially in the eastern seaboard of the United States. He is has been a prolific collector of fossils along the eastern seaboard from between about 250 and 200 million years ago. He's an incredibly varied scientist in his skills, who has done a lot of work on the geology of this time period, but also just individual organisms in the paleontology. National Academy of Sciences member, former winner of the Thomas Jefferson Award. I don't remember what year exactly. And his name adorns many of the little specimen tags from the early collections of the Virginia Museum of Natural History, in addition to Dr. Frazier's. So he's had a long affiliation with the museum, still helping me identify the bits and pieces that we're finding from this time interval, and I am happy to endorse him.
Excellent.
For renewal.
Excellent. Anyone else have anything to say on behalf of Dr. Olson?
Nothing other than that I did notice his name isn't on the list of current adjunct researchers.
I'm not entirely certain why that is. The list that I inherited did not have him on it, but it seems apparent that he was a member in the past. So we'll just get him on there now and consider this one a renewal if that's all with everyone.
Okay, I would move to do that then.
All right. Is there a second to approve the renewal of Dr. Olson's appointment as research associate? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Okay. Thank you again, everyone. Boy, we're just steaming right along here. Dr. Bassett, I've asked him to give him an update to the repatriation of the Guatemalan artifacts that we discussed at the last quarterly meeting. So Dr. Bassett, I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. First I want to say there's kind of a cool opportunity in this too. So if you'll remember from last time, the Guatemala artifacts came in a few years ago, 2017, I believe, as a collection of 4 Hollinger boxes worth of material. But we quickly identified that many of them likely date to the classical Mayan period. So it wasn't just sort of Guatemalan street art. It was a combination of antiquities and sort of more 20th century street art. So what do we do? Well, I won't recap everything we talked about last time, but bringing that to the forward now, we now have sort of 4 different options, 2 of which we're actively pursuing at the moment. So let me just give a minute. So I'll just sort of lay this out as plan A, B, C, and D. We are working on plan A and B at the moment. So plan A is Dr. Kuiper and I are scheduled to meet with our contact at the Guatemalan Embassy, Sergio Romola of Herndon, Virginia. He's going to discuss with us possibilities for engaging with the Guatemalan Embassy, particularly the possibility of a direct transfer of collections to the embassy, which would effectively serve as a direct transfer of collections to the host nation, to Guatemala. And then he has a few other things in mind. I think we're meeting with him actually next week. So plan B, if that doesn't work out, and we're still pursuing, we're actually or in parallel to plan A, we're pursuing plan B, which is Dr. Nash has put us in touch with her contact at the Smithsonian. And he is currently considering sort of our situation and what options we might have in particularly serving as a liaison directly with the Guatemala Museum. And then if those 2 don't work out, we have sort of our C and D option. C is what we discussed last time, a low-cost transfer of artifacts directly to the Guatemalan National Museum from our museum, which simply means 2 suitcases and a plane ticket. And then the plan D is the donation of these artifacts to a museum, perhaps in Virginia, like the Chrysler Museum, where this collection actually is in scope for them. So that's sort of in a nutshell where we are, and we should hopefully have more information by next week.
Great. Thank you so much for the update, and do keep us posted so we can report on this at the next research and collections meeting. Appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Bassett? Okay. Wow, we're already to other business. Does anybody have any other business? First of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for all the curatorial participation at this meeting. All of you are always welcome, and I very much encourage your input at any time, and appreciate you taking part in these meetings, especially on your Saturday mornings. I know it's no small thing when you're working hard all week. So thank you again for taking the time to be here and participate. Since we have a little bit of time, I thought I'd give each curator just an opportunity to give a brief overview of some of the highlights that are in the quarterly report, but give you a chance to put your 2 cents into the group, and it will help me kind of put at least a little emphasis in places for the full board meeting. So maybe we'll start with Dr. Moncrief.
I'll unmute for this.
Excellent.
So in the highlights, I believe I talked about some of the manuscripts that I was working on last fall, and I'm happy to report that the finally got submitted a manuscript on healed bone breaks in tree squirrels that Cal Ivanov and Liberty Hightower and I had been working on. And we actually pulled in a person I've never met from Georgia who had a data set that meshed very nicely with our data. And so that manuscript is now in review at the Journal of Mammalogy. What else did I do? It's hard to remember 4 months
You gave
ago.
a talk. You gave a talk at Wayne Theater, and I want to commend all the curators who did that.
Right. And I'll mention that that talk and a talk that I gave for DB Poley's biology class last fall, the curators are recording our presentations, and Christy Dethridge is going to be using those as part of a teacher professional development package so that they can get recertification credit, even though we're completely virtual right now. And I can see that very well continuing into the future because, like I told Christy, I'm going to be practicing my talk anyway, and it's easy enough for me to just connect with her on Zoom and let her record my PowerPoint as I'm doing the voiceover, and then use that for teachers who a lot of them are interested in the content, but frankly, even being able to come in person to the museum one night during the month, knowing all the things that teachers are doing with their classwork, it may not be convenient for them to come on the second Thursday of the month. So we've been doing that. And Adam, more recently in January, I have been very busy with Adam, and I'll let him talk about that. One of our research associates, Ray Bernor, is currently funded through NSF. Ray does work on fossil horses, and he has pulled me and Adam and the museum into that project, and he's trying to get the funding set up through the VMNH Foundation. And I hope I didn't give away too much for Adam, but I can't remember anything else I've been doing that's in the report.
Okay, well, that's all right. We've got the report, but just wanted to get your highlights. And since you mentioned
Sure.
Adam by name, maybe he can go next.
No, I've been called out now.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful to Nancy and Dr. Bernor for being so diligent. We've all been working on developing a VMNH component for what is called the Futures Initiative. This is it's a functional trait database system that they're trying to put together. It's a multi-institutional collaborative that's basically not only kind of collecting a large number of just kind of the data sets that have been published in mostly the vertebrate paleontology and modern vertebrate morphology literature that are focused on functional evolution in various groups of animals, but also integrating them so, like, if you search for an individual specimen that is referenced in a wide number of databases, you can basically collect all of that information together with it in a single entry. The VMNH's role in that will include kind of several research projects that Nancy is working on and I am working on that will be, that have collections of this sort of functional data, but from groups that aren't currently represented by the sort of futures team. But the funding will largely go to the support of student intern positions at the museum from the anticipated funding date of late fall of this year to 2024. So
Nice.
a lot of cool opportunities for folks to come to the museum, for younger, kind of students to come to the museum, have research opportunities. And one of the things that I pitched in part in my part of the project is that they will be expected to produce outreach projects as a component of that. So hopefully there will be some things to kind of show off to the world as to what this funding is doing. So,
Nice.
and the current, as far as I know, we are not the lead institution in terms of the submission of the final proposal. That is the University of Oregon. The current objective is to get it out into the world for review by the end of February. So yeah, that's one major thing that's been going on. Should I go into the other things?
Sure. We've got time. What do you consider to be a highlight? That would be great.
I have been working on a kind of monograph description of a gliding reptile for a very long time now. And that is currently the revised version is currently being examined by the editorial staff of the journal PeerJ. And as far as I can tell, they are happy with everything. So that should be published within the next month or so. So very excited about that.
I'd like to hear you pronounce the genus, please.
Vigeltisaurids.
That's the way I would have said it.
Mm-hmm.
Whoops, there goes my camera.
Dramatic.
Keep talking. I'll be back.
So yeah, this is an extension of postdoctoral work I was doing at the Smithsonian. And yeah, that's the big thing. And I'll continue to do kind of outreach videos for social media, presented lectures and things to a wide number of audiences, including at the Wayne Theater. Yeah, those are my major things.
I didn't mean to disrupt things with my technical difficulties. Nancy, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to say, I'm glad we didn't have a folders moment there with your camera.
Oh, yeah. Well, I try to make sure that I'm prepared for anything personally and otherwise in these things, but there are lapses, I'm sure.
I was going to ask if a gliding reptile had knocked your camera over.
Not in this weather.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah, they're a little slow at this point.
snowy and icy out there today. Well, thank you. Cal, Dr. Ivanov, would you care to share a couple of your highlights with us?
Oh, good morning, everybody. Sure thing. As Art said earlier, we've been staying busy despite the current circumstances. A lot of material in, so collections are going strong, a lot of research, a number of papers. I'm both excited and terrified at the same time that I'll have my first vertebrate paper published. So hopefully sometime soon. And that's thanks, of course, to the efforts of Dr. Moncrief. Another paper just recently came out as of a couple weeks ago with Dr. Means, and I'll let him actually talk about this a little bit. But probably one of the biggest things is we are on the final stretch of getting our genetics labs running. We have 3 or 4 more items that we're waiting on, and we'll be good to go pretty much. Just buy some reagents and move forward. So a great addition to the museum, not of course just to the invertebrates component of research and collections. I also recently finished, excuse me, pardon me, teaching an online course at Hampton University, which was also in collaboration with University of Texas at El Paso. And the reason I'm mentioning this, we don't get many opportunities to actually teach courses directly as curators. So that's always a good opportunity. And we're currently working with the students themselves on a manuscript. Creating the first checklist of the answer to the Chihuahuan Desert, which is pretty exciting to me. A region that I have visited over 15 years ago now, but anyway. And the most exciting thing, in my personal opinion, that has happened to the recent invertebrates department is the recent hire of Dr. Jackson Means. He's been with us for over a year now, but he was working as a collections assistant, a part-time position, and that changed on January 4th. He's full-time for at least 18 months, and we are already exploring possibilities of actually keeping him around for much, much longer. And with that, I would give the mic to Jackson so he can say a few words of what he's been working on over the past couple months.
Please do. And welcome, Jackson. Appreciate you attending the meeting today.
Hey, well, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. This position is like honestly it's a dream come true for me in a lot of ways. And I'm sure you all are well familiarized with what Richard Hoffman did for the museum, but he's kind of a hero in the world of myriapodology, millipedes and centipedes. And to be able to work in his collection is just an incredible honor. And so one of the first big thing I was doing that I've been doing working in the museum is trying to digitize, at least get a spreadsheet, not photographs yet eventually, but getting a spreadsheet and digitizing everything we have in the collection, because the myriapodology collection is one of the largest collections and most important collections of millipedes in the world. And researchers from all over the world use it. But we didn't have a great grasp on what's in there. And I had to update a lot of the taxonomy. So I finished that. And I'm now adding in Bill Shear's not informidable collection into ours. So we're getting even more stuff. But I do have some great little numerics to throw out at you. At this point, we have over 22,000 specimens. So it's a pretty large collection. Nearly 400 type specimens. So type specimens are, when you describe a species, that is the voucher for that species or group of vouchers. And those are really, really important for research. If anybody wants to work on that species or group, they look at those types. So they'll be contacting our institution to see those types. And so 400 type specimens. The stuff that I'm really excited about as a researcher is the undescribed, new species and even genera that are in this collection. We have over 600 undescribed species and over 200 undescribed genera, which is really, really crazy, but not unheard of in millipedes. They're not very well studied, but they are super diverse. And so it's really, really exciting. And of course, we have specimens from all over the world, not just Virginia, but a lot of stuff from Africa, Southeast Asia, South America. It's a really, really exciting collection. But yeah, to get back to the publication that I just produced with Cal and Ben, this was a really exciting, just kind of one of those like magical moments that you never expect will happen. But way back at the beginning of COVID in April 4th, we decided to get out for a socially distanced, poking around Ben's property. Ben has some really nice property in Virginia near the museum. And so we were out there, poking around, and I stumbled upon a millipede that I had worked on in my PhD. However, so this species was only previously known from less than a kilometer squared area on the Blue Ridge Parkway. It's a threatened species called the Laurel Creek millipede. Apheloria whiteheadi is the scientific name. And it's a really beautiful millipede. It has these bright yellow stripes, really dark background. But, at first I saw it and I didn't believe it because I had made a paper looking into, whether there are other populations. And we've done this big study and we found no other populations. And so suddenly I discovered this second population. So that's what this paper was. We wrote it up. We just published it in Banisteria. It's a small, natural history paper, but it's really exciting for this species because it's encouraging that perhaps it'll continue to persist, and it's a little bit more robust than we thought. So that's really exciting, and that may lead to further research into its genetics and whether there's any differences between the populations, and then some behavioral stuff. So yeah, that was pretty exciting. But yeah, I'm just very excited to be here in the collection working on these millipedes, and we have a bunch of projects that Cal and I are kind of creating and shaping up. So
well, thank you. Thank you very much. I have a question. Did Richard have a lot of loans that you're in the process of sorting out?
Yeah. So, yeah, Richard had I'm going through the collection. So those 400 types that I mentioned are ours. They are the VMNHs. That is not including, I actually have the statistic here somewhere, but it's around 200, I think, additional types that are from other institutions and will need to be sent back. I mean, Hoffman just, for whatever reason, didn't have a chance before he unfortunately passed away. So we have a fair number. It's 170, so it's not too bad. But yeah, about 170 types that I'll be returning. And so a lot of that is trying to figure out, some of these may have been gifted to him by researchers, and they didn't necessarily put in their publications that they were depositing them at the VMNH or at Radford, where Hoffman was beforehand. And so, you got to kind of tease that out. But yeah, it's around 170.
I'm sure that with some people, he, just made arrangements with a firm handshake and a smile, and all the documentation there was.
It was very a lax time.
It'll take some taxonomic sleuthing on your part to see what the options are. So, but I certainly appreciate your efforts in sorting that all out, because it is such an important collection. And Richard's legacy, I knew him very well. His legacy will live on through you and your work, and we're lucky to have you here.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Great.
May I ask a question? I'm curious about your work with digitization. You said that you were working toward digitization, and I'm wondering, what are you digitizing, and how is it being made available to people? Because it sounds like this is just really a remarkable collection, really wonderful.
Yeah, so
exciting.
Right now it's just kind of the label data and jar data, getting new labels for the jars and everything, getting it all into a library, Excel spreadsheet that we all have and can share. And eventually the idea is to have that online, that anybody can go to the VMNH website and just see, what our holdings are, to be able to search for taxa, things like that. And then down the line, if we get a nice visualization system, be able to take photographs and have those, as part of it. But right now it's just kind of just data, as much data as we can get for each specimen and jar.
Well, thank you again. Hayden, do you have anything to add to your previous remarks?
Sure, and I'll keep it brief. So a couple of things is, I guess first and foremost, we gave a few staff archaeologists at Museum, Madeline and I gave a few talks over the past couple of, I guess, this quarter for this prior to this meeting, and one of them was for the Martinsville and Henry County Historical Society. That was on our predictive modeling work that we've done for this drainage, the Smith River drainage and archaeological site locations. The other one was a somewhat recent talk in January. We both presented at the Society for Historical Archaeology, which is one of our large international professional organizations. For that one, we also presented on a little bit of different work for the Smith River Valley archaeology in this area. And then finally, I gave a talk in December in Jamaica, over Zoom, of course. But this was a talk on some of my previous dissertation research on the island. And then beyond that, there's some exciting news with some of the projects we're starting. So Cultural Heritage Monitoring Lab being one. This past Friday, I guess yesterday, we actually just had the MOU finalized. So this is the MOU between the Smithsonian. Sorry, my cat's not cooperating over here. This is the MOU between the Smithsonian and the Virginia Museum of Natural History. And this is our official partnership with this lab. So this is a Smithsonian and VMNH lab. And that gives us tons of resources and a network to plug straight into. And the exciting network is actually a research network that the museum is now a part of, called the Conflict Culture Resource Network, which is a large NSF funded project. And this is actually sort of one of the end games we wanted for the lab, which is not only to find these events, do the satellite imaging monitoring, protect the global heritage, but actually contribute to research in some meaningful way. In this case, it's looking at the questions of why cultural heritage is targeted around the world. Why is it impacted? So not just the sort of what and when, but the whys. And so we're collaborating with the University of Pennsylvania for that, and a few other organizations. The other exciting news is that now, through our recent efforts with monitoring, particularly for two conflicts, Nagorno-Karabakh between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and then the other one, Tigray in northern Ethiopia, we now report directly to UNESCO with our findings. So this is sort of the large governing body in at least our discipline for global protection of cultural heritage. But the exciting part for us is that we're not just doing this. It actually goes somewhere to some form of authority who actually has the means and resources to respond in some meaningful way. Beyond that project, we have officially started the Smith River Survey, and in sort of interesting ways. One is we now have ground penetrating radar scheduled for our sites along the Smith River Valley. And that's sort of our first step in archaeology today, is to actually revisit some of these village sites, but not just sort of dig willy-nilly throughout them, but to actually sort of surgically target certain areas for not only the impact analysis from our recent flooding, but some of our opportunistic research as well. The other one is we recently received a grant commitment for a new project. And this will dovetail perfectly with the Smith River Survey. And that is a project that actually started a couple of years ago, or was first committed a couple of years ago, but the money is actually getting ready to arrive. And this is the Patrick Henry Leatherwood project, which now has a new component. That new component is a site in Henry County on the Smith River, actually in Fieldale, called Waller's Ford, which is an important American Revolution site for this area. So we'll be adding that into the mix for that project, but that's a $50,000 commitment from a funding body, which I'll send out a little bit of information on. So in a nutshell, that's sort of where we are with archaeology right now.
Excellent. Well, I'm really impressed with all that you continue to do. And one of the things that I'm seeing is not only have things not slowed down, but it seems like things have picked up since the pandemic. And it looks like there's, in the process, there are greater opportunities for collaboration beyond what you've been able to do before. I know that in many cases, it's preferable to be in the same room or on the same field site with your colleagues, but now that we know that there are options, our field of activities can spread out even further. And I want to thank all the curators for working with Ben too. I'm always feeling kind of flat-footed at and tongue-tied at the full board meetings, because I feel like just the few snippets that I share with the board don't adequately represent your hard work. And so I appreciate you working with him to provide a full quarterly report, which for several meetings now we've made available to the entire board. It isn't just up to the board, the RNC chair, to be that conduit, and also to highlight particular things that you would like the board to know about. And I will do my best to share that with the board directly and then call their attention to the full report. But what you do is very important. And as far as I'm concerned, it's why the museum exists, and everything else is built around that. So kudos to all of you for your hard work, and anything that we can do as a board to support your work, please let us know. And we'll see what we can do, because in my opinion, we're here to support you and your efforts. Does anybody else have any other comments or piece of business? Cal?
I want to forgot to mention something that pretty much everybody in research and collection has been working on for quite a while now. One thing is the former invertebrate paleontology lab is being converted into a shared lab. Shared lab meaning across all departments, and not only a shared lab, but it will be a space available for visiting researchers and students with a sufficient amount of counter space, storage, computer access, and so on and so forth. So we're currently in a process of moving out some large storage cabinets, and also that particular space will house the VMNH's zooarchaeology collection.
Oh, okay.
So it will play a double role. The lab was for a long time underutilized, so we found a good way to share space. And something that I'll let actually Dr. Bassett say a few more words, because it was his idea ultimately that resulted in another shared space that we're currently working on.
So the other shared lab is what we're right now calling the VMNH STEM lab. And this has a few purposes. So everyone's familiar with the museum. This is the former distance learning lab on the ground floor, in between paleontology and archaeology. And what our vision is for this is we're actually pretty much every department at this point is investing in some form of new technology that we realized, that not only does one department benefit from it, but there's a benefit, across departments. So to share those technologies and to sort of centralize them in some meaningful way, we created the STEM lab. And what we're going to be doing is showcasing some of the new methodological approaches that are now out there in the museum sciences, but also undertaking a sort of combined digitization effort. And so we have, I think Dr. Nash, was asking about, what are our plans for, digitization, particularly with Jackson's work. And one thing that we sort of realized is that while we're not necessarily set up for this now, there's going to come a time in the next few years where there's going to be an expectation and a strong need for a large digital repository for the museum. And so while we're not necessarily creating that infrastructure now, we at least want to create the digital assets so that we can populate it when the time comes. And so what's going to be in there? Well, one is we have our GIS set up that we're going to house in there, and that's going to be shared across departments. Adam has the new 3D printer, sort of a very high quality 3D printer for the museum that has countless applications for each discipline, and then imaging stations, digital microscopes, something that the public will actually be able to see. Museums are not just sort of places where things are kept, but they'll actually be able to see the actual research process in a very engaging way with some of these new technologies.
That's exciting.
And one thing I would add to that, I think Hayden definitely gave an overview of this, just the tech that will be on display in there. But one thing that we've been discussing with Ryan Barber is having a nice big monitor in that lab space that is facing out into the Hall of Ancient Life, that will not only display some of the work going on in the lab, but also serve as sort of a regularly updated just kind of informational display on current projects in RNC. So in addition to having nice renderings of the GIS work or three-dimensional models or things like that, we can also just update it with like, hey, here's Jackson with a new species of millipede he found yesterday, or things like that. Just so, especially in a time when the research staff and museum visitors are not really coinciding with when they're present in the museum, thus such that no one other than the folks that are really plugged in can see that research is being done physically at the museum, I think it'll provide a really great opportunity for people to have the sense of the museum as a living institution that is continuing to produce good science.
I'm really impressed with the synergy you guys have created working together, this collaborative projects, cross-disciplinary projects, and all with the idea of working outside the institution and then sharing it all with the public. This is exactly what we're all about, and your efforts are much appreciated. This can only help your own work and spread enhance the reputation of the museum. So well done. Please keep it up. Does anybody else have any other information they'd like to share or any other business before we adjourn? Lisa, who joined us after her other meeting. Nice to see you. I'm not hearing you. Apparently your microphone's on, but something's not connected.
All right, well, bye-bye then.
Oh, I hear you
go.
now. We got you.
Okay, good.
Just
I'm not
speak
sure
up.
what's going on. I too am excited about all the synergy, and I like the signage, the digital display that Adam was just talking about. They do that at the museum where they have the tar pits, La Brea tar pits, and it's very interactive. If you're walking through, you can see exactly what the researchers are working on and sort of feel connected to what they're doing behind the glass. So great idea. Art, I did join late because I was at the facilities committee. And so,
Oh, I knew that. You needed a quorum. So no worries. No worries at all.
I did want to know if you all talked about the artifacts that we were trying to repatriate. And if you did, I can catch up later. But if not, I would just like an update on that.
Yeah, we went through it pretty extensively, and I'll do my best to give an overview at the full board meeting. And of course, if you have any questions, we can direct them back to Hayden if necessary.
All right, thank you.
All right, anything else?
All right, I'm going to echo what you've already said, which I really like the synergy. I also like the outreach component that you guys are thinking about and how you're reaching out to audiences beyond the museum. And one of the remarks that I would say is in the report, Ben, on page 25, you actually summarized the people served database. And I don't know if there's any way to capture, I didn't see it captured, but I don't know if there's any way to capture, for example, the number of Facebook views that we had on the Wayne Theater talks. I mean, Cal's talk had over 600. The talk that Jim Beard gave last week had over 1,400 views on Facebook. And so I think that's just, making the point that a lot of what we're doing to serve our audience now is digital. So I don't know if there's a way to update that database. Obviously, maybe the numbers aren't completely comparable to having somebody in the museum, but I think it's something that we need to be able to show everyone that we're doing.
Good point.
If I can speak briefly on that, I think historically our social media data has been part of the marketing report. But I would agree that given, the nature of our work during the pandemic and the fact that that is one of our primary means of outreach, I certainly think it's, maybe time to reconfigure our people served data on the research and collection side to reflect that.
Yeah, and that's a really good point you bring up because I hate to say there's any benefit to a pandemic, but it has forced us to rethink how we deliver, and it's really enabled folks to use technology and realize that you can stay safe and you can experience things in another state or in the same town. But I think that's really good thought that should be updated.
And make sure that it's clearly identified at the beginning of the end of each presentation. This is the Virginia Museum of Natural History. Please join us and support our efforts. We need to bring the message home. This it isn't free. This is for you, and we appreciate your support. Anything else? This has been a really interesting meeting. I'm kind of energized. I'm panicked that I'm going to be able to do it justice in about 45 minutes time, but I'll do my best. again, I appreciate everyone's efforts and for participating in this morning's meeting. And again, Ben is the one I've been working with directly to distill your efforts into this report. So I appreciate you guys working together and making that happen. And then we can present that information to the full board, because it's very important that they know and appreciate what you're doing, because again, research and collections is the core activity of the museum. That's where it all begins. So thank you again. If there's no further discussion or comments, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you again very much. Be safe out there, and I'll see some of you shortly at the full board meeting. Thanks, Ben.